Ever wondered how a YouTuber's studio got to be the way that it is? Well, today I'm going to explain how I built all of this, how things are arranged, why they're set up that way, because I've spent a lot of time, effort, and money building this thing up, and I figured I might as well share it with you guys. Maybe you'll get something out of it. For example, I can do really random, stupid stuff that doesn't really matter, such as this transition. Oh, I want to show you something at the desk. Come with me. It's as easy as turning around, pressing a button, and swapping the mics. How cool was that? I know, it's like, who on earth needs to be able to do that? Very few people, but the tech that allows me to do that transition seamlessly, whether we're filming a video such as this or live over on Twitch, is pretty cool. And I'm going to share it with you so you can potentially add this type of thing to your setup if you want to be a YouTuber, or if you want to take your stream up a notch. I don't know, or maybe you just find this stuff cool. That's why I'm doing this. But let me be very, very clear. I'm not doing this to suggest that like you need high-end equipment to be successful. The reason I'm here now with a studio that's about 25 grand is because I've built it up over years and years of grinding, of adding little bits and pieces along the way. A lot of these things, well, maybe not a lot, but a few of these things have been provided by brands and sponsors, such as the two big monitors that I use here for console gameplay. They've been provided by BenQ. They are top of the line monitors that I'm going to talk about here in just a little bit. And BenQ provided them to me just because they like my content and said, hey, listen, if you want these monitors, check them out, review them if you like, let people know what you think of them, but no obligation. Very cool, calm, and chill. And when you start to get your feet under you as a creator, you can get to that point where brands start to recognize you and they want to be a part of what you're doing. And fantastic sponsors and brand partnerships such as BenQ can take your whole setup up a notch. So just understand that I'm not doing this to try and just blindly flex or to put you down if you don't have high-end equipment. That's not at all what I'm saying. I started from nothing. I remember I used to record voiceovers for my videos on like my MacBook Pro from 2012. It was like 5 years old at the time. And it had like the little cutout for the microphone up at the top by the power button. And I used to like lean in over the mic or over the microphone, over the laptop, and talk into that because I thought that that microphone was going to be way higher quality than if I were just like using headphone microphones or something. I started with the most bare bones janky setup you can imagine, and now I'm here. So I just want you to understand, you don't have to start with a crazy setup. You can start with something a little more humble that doesn't break the bank, and you can find an audience no problem. It's about you, it's not about the equipment. If you like upgrading the equipment, great. I happen to be sort of a technophile. That's probably not what I think it is, but I'm somebody that likes tech. And so I love adding these little things, these bells and whistles, making cool stuff happen through tech. And so I love upgrading it for its own sake. But don't think that you have to do that to be successful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you each of the major pieces of this puzzle and explain how it works. The first thing I want to mention are the monitors, because I think that probably is the most important piece to a puzzle such as this, because it's what I'm staring at all day. It's what I'm editing videos off of. It's what I'm interacting with the whole community through. The monitors are sort of the window to the whole experience. Also, just so you know, I have links to all of the equipment I'm about to show off in the description box below through the kit link. So if you want to see how the whole studio is set up, if you want to check out each of these products on Amazon or Best Buy or B&H or whatever it is, you can check it out there. Now I'm running 3 displays, at least on this side of the room. More on that in just a second. I have this 32-inch BenQ monitor that they just sent over, a Morbius display. I'm going to show you a little unboxing segment that I have filmed when I got that in just a second. But that monitor I use for all of my console gameplay. So if I'm playing off of a PS5 or something and I want to enjoy HDR content, I do that on that monitor, especially because Windows support for HDR is really finicky right now, but console support is phenomenal, and that monitor makes it look unreal. It's ridiculous. This one is another 32-inch BenQ monitor that served me well. I've had that for a couple of years, and it served me very, very well. Up until I got this new one, I was using that for all my console gameplay as well, so that's a fantastic monitor. And then in the center, I have a curved Samsung 1440p monitor that I use for the main gaming PC, because it's mostly just used for, I mean, Windows games, so it's mostly about refresh rate. So having a 240 hertz refresh rate display is just really nifty. Plus, I realized my eyes aren't that great, and the curve actually weirdly helps me avoid headaches and migraines for extended periods of time when the monitor is sitting right in front of me. I don't know why, it just does. I've been told it's because the distance your eyes have to refocus as you pan across the screen remains the same when the screen is curved versus flat, where your eyes have to refocus on the edges and then center and then the edge again. I don't know if that's true, but that's what they at least told me. By the way, I have links to all of this equipment in the description box below. All right, now I want to show you the moment that I got this monitor. BenQ again has been just fantastically generous to me. So indulge me, let me show you some of the cool bells and whistles that this monitor has as a thank you to BenQ for being so generous for sending it over. It really has been a phenomenal monitor. I'm not incredibly up to date on monitor technology, but this thing seems like out of this world for what it's able to do. 4K sports HDR, it's able to do 144 hertz with like 1 millisecond response times. It's ridiculous. This thing is like the Rolls Royce of monitors right now. Check it out. This is my little unboxing. There you go. So earlier today, I was recording some content for my gaming website that I run with Cammy and Jacob. It's thelag.com. Check it out if you haven't. And I got a knock on my door, a FedEx delivery man who needed a signature for a package. So I ran upstairs, signed for it, and this thing showed up. It is a massive 32-inch BenQ Mobius gaming monitor. It's an absolute tank of a monitor, and I'm excited. So let's open it up. I'll be honest, I'm not even really sure how I'm gonna open this. Like, I don't have a table, I just have this chair. So this might be a little clunky. Okay. And then swings open. I'm gonna have to set it on the floor. So for now, this big box filled with stuff. Jeez, you know you're dealing with a hardcore monitor when it comes with a controller, like a TV. Oh, good Lord. That's a monster. 32 inches. Woo, look at that. That is gorgeous. I'll have actual B-roll, so it's not just me holding it up, but that is crazy. Thinner than I would expect, too. Okay, so there's no quick way of me doing this. I have my monitors currently on like a pretty elaborate mounting system, so I'm gonna spend the next like hour and a half, 2 hours, like getting this thing mounted properly, and then we'll be back and we'll talk about it. So like I said, here's some flashy B-roll of the monitor. It's fantastic. It actually makes me really enjoy playing console games down here in the studio. I played pretty much all of Elden Ring on this monitor. Horizon Forbidden West, played it on this monitor. They just look fantastic. So I'm spoiled, I admit it. If you're looking at a high-end monitor and you're looking at something to really enjoy console gameplay off of, I cannot recommend this enough. Like, seriously, it's ridiculous. I am so freaking lucky that they called me. Like, I got the email, they're like, hey, we want to send you this thing. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And I believed that they weren't going to send it. I was like, it's probably a mistake. And then it shows up and it's fantastic. I'm so spoiled. So thank you, BenQ. Highly recommend it to everybody. Not being paid to say that. They sent me the monitor to check out. I happen to freaking love it. So that being said, moving on. I'll stop fangirling. So just going down the list, I also have a couple of speakers that you see behind me right above each shoulder. These are actually a recent addition. These are KEF LS50 Mark 2s. I don't know if they're Mark 2 or just the number 2, but basically these are just really high-end speakers. I'm a bit of an audiophile. I really appreciate high quality audio. I run Definitive Technology speakers in my home theater space. So I've always been a bit of a snob when it comes to sound quality, and these things are freakishly powerful speakers and incredibly crisp and clear. So I highly recommend them, but they're definitely not aimed towards video gameplay. Like, these aren't really designed to just blast gameplay audio. They can do that, absolutely, and they'll sound fantastic. They're primarily focused on really hi-fi, in other words, high fidelity music, which is why if you're running these, you probably want to get a subscription to Tidal or some other high fidelity music streaming source if you like streaming music. Otherwise, have like downloaded raw audio files and run those through this thing, because these speakers are phenomenal, but they're only going to put out what they get in. And if you're putting in garbage, it's going to be garbage in, garbage out. So you got to kind of upgrade everything when you get a pair of speakers like this. Otherwise, you're just kind of wasting your money and time. Paired with it, I also have a sneakily hidden subwoofer down in the bottom corner of the room. This thing, I just added it. It runs with a cable up to the speaker, so all of the low notes get handled by the subwoofer. It makes those big moments in games or movies or TV shows, whatever I'm doing in the studio, really impactful. It's not necessary for a room this size, just being completely honest, but it is very nice to have the upgraded functionality there. So when we move into a bigger space here pretty soon, we will have the ability to really crank the audio and just be totally outrageous. Moving along the peripheral line, I have over here my main headset. This is the Astro A50. It's a great headset. I really don't have any complaints about it. It's a wireless headset. It works fluidly with the rest of the setup. I do think that the built-in microphone functionality could be improved, but I'm not really using it other than occasional gameplay when the actual microphone input isn't functioning properly. So it's more of a backup microphone, but even so, it's pretty tinny and light. I think it could be improved, or just remove the microphone entirely and offer it for like 25, 30 bucks less. Maybe they do that nowadays, but when I got it, they didn't do that. But all told, fantastic headset, no problem. But all of this goes through one central hub, and that is my GoXLR. Here's my little B-roll of the GoXLR. It's a streamer's dream, basically because it has 4 different audio inputs. And what that means for me is that I can have a microphone going on one track. I can have my main gaming PC on one track, all of these sound that's going out through that. I can have the streaming PC, which is this box that we'll get to in a second. That can have its own output track. And then I can have a 4th output track, which is dedicated to perhaps music that we're using in the background of a stream, or to sound effects, or whatever else you want to use it for. It's just freaking fantastic. I wasn't really sold on it. I actually got it expecting to return it within a week or two. It's been a lifesaver. I love this thing. I really don't know how I functioned without it before this, and I'm just being completely honest. I can't imagine going back from this thing. It makes it all so easy to use, especially because each of the different tracks show up as a sound output source in Windows. No issue. It just shows up. So you can select each individually. I've used this while editing videos, where I can even have like a show, a TV show on one track, and then I can have my Premiere Pro output on another fader, and then I can have another input over here. And so I can raise the volumes, shift them all in real time without having to like open Chrome and move the slider and then worry about the Adobe Premiere output and shift that. It all just works so fluidly. It makes everything stupid simple. Paired with it, I have the headphone output jack actually going into an aux selector and shifter. So what I can do is switch the output between the headset and these speakers, which means if I don't use the primary output to the speakers, I can actually hot swap the output from my headphones out through the speakers. So if my wife Nikki comes in and wants to see what I'm working on, it's just a press of the button, and then the sound, everything I was hearing in my headphones, is playing through the speakers, which I think is kind of cool. In the same vein as the audio that we've been talking about, microphones, this whole thing, how does this work? Well, I actually have 2 microphones, and it's not because I wanted to just go crazy bushy. It's because I was using this Shure SM7B for like 3 or 4 years. I've used this thing for a long time. It actually might be closer to 5 years now that I think about it. It's been a great microphone, but I just I started to kind of lose touch and lose feel for the particular sound that it puts out. So I just decided it was time to shift and upgrade to a microphone that I personally think sounds better for my voice, which is the RE20, which I'll switch to now. It is just a matter of personal preference. I'm being completely honest. For some people, this is going to sound worse than that Shure. For other people, the RE20 is going to be night and day, and you're going to be like, how the hell did I listen to the rest of that video on the Shure? I don't know. This is so much better. It really is just a matter of personal preference. And even then, if your headphones or if your speakers aren't nice enough, I guess, or aren't full bodied enough, then you might not even be able to hear a difference at all. So it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that much, but I can hear a difference when editing, when putting these videos together, and I greatly prefer the sound of this microphone. So I finally decided to treat myself, upgrade to it. Then I was left with that microphone, which is sort of what inspired this whole setup upgrade with the secondary camera, because I didn't want to just have that microphone sitting around doing nothing. I know I could sell it on the secondhand market, but it's always been weird to me that like you sell something that you've spat into for 5 years straight. Like, I can only imagine that thing's got to be like a bacterial, not even colony, like civilization. They probably are developing space travel, like that episode where Peter Griffin in Family Guy shakes hands with Boo Berry and then doesn't want to wash his hand and it grows a whole colony. That type of thing. That's that microphone. Both of these microphones actually have long XLR cables that route all the way around back behind the desk to a singular hotshot ABI switcher, which here's some B-roll of it. And all this thing does is swap between two inputs. This only really works for dynamic microphones, not really condensers, otherwise you get loud pops. And all that means is that for a microphone like this, normally you don't need to actually have any current flowing into the microphone. It just sends the signal through the cable. There's no power directly sending to this microphone, which is kind of cool. Condenser microphones, that's not true. There is power going into it. So if you're looking at like an AT2020 in one of these switchers, it's not going to work quite well. But these things go into that box and I can swap between the inputs, and then further between that switcher and the GoXLR, I have a cloud lifter which receives 48 volts from the GoXLR to lift the signal before it reaches the GoXLR. All of that to say, what it effectively does is just allow me to hot swap between the microphones like I've been doing as I bounce between camera angles. Again, it's not something probably anybody really needs in their setup, but I think it's really cool, and it is nice to be able to just quickly swap between camera angles, keep things fresh and different. I like it. Now, speaking of different camera angles, this is one of the cooler things, and it's also one of the cheaper things that actually might be the cheapest thing that I've shown off so far. It's very, very simple, and I love it dearly. If you follow me on TikTok, you've seen this because I showed it off there. I think it's so cool. This whole thing is about $15 to $30, depending on which version you get, and it totally changes everything. Look at this. You've noticed that I keep turning around and speaking into that camera and that microphone. You might be wondering where, like, that whole section is so dark. I don't know how how is it lit properly? How does any of that work? Well, I have on this camera what's called a polarizing filter. And what that means is it can block out certain light based on the directionality of it. And what that effectively means is that just with a simple turn of that filter, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, you can see all of that come back into view. Because what I actually have here, I have a monitor down there, a small little portable. I actually have a second one that this company sent me, Lapau. It's a little portable monitor that's meant for taking like consoles on the go or whatever else. You can basically just unfold it and you have a second monitor, which is kind of cool. But I have that down there, which is set up to an HDMI splitter from that camera that's kind of hidden in the darkness. And that thing shows me the live feed of the camera, so I know if I'm in frame or in focus. And then that big monitor right there is a Samsung monitor that I previously just kind of had laying around. But what it does is it mirrors this monitor I have up above me, so I can see Streamlabs or OBS, whatever I've opened, right there. Or on stream, if we're reacting to a video, I can put the video up there, turn around, be in a much more relaxed position, and react to the video right there. And with this polarizing filter, you won't actually see it. Once it's all rotated, it just completely disappears. How stupid cool is that? I think it's so cool. Again, it's only like 15 bucks to order off Amazon. You just have to make sure the size of it is properly sized for your particular lens on your camera. But this thing will not just get rid of that glare from the secondary monitors, making them basically invisible. It'll also get rid of any glare that you might have off of like the display cases, which is why I originally got it, because the light from these monitors was bouncing off of those display cases and it was reflecting back into the camera, and it made everything look really gross. Put this thing on it, those are gone, and those monitors disappear as well. So even though I have these things here that are they're a bit of an eyesore to me, you look in the camera, you can't see them at all. And I mean, that to me is movie magic. I think it's amazing. Speaking of other things I think are amazing, I recently switched keyboards. I'm currently running with a GMMK Pro. These are sort of an intro keyboard to the mechanical keyboard hobby. I don't know a lot about the hobby, but what I do know is that this thing is freaking fantastic. I set it up with Gatoron red switches. I got different stabilizers. I followed a couple of tutorials off YouTube. I can't remember the name of the individual, but the biggest guy on YouTube, if you search like how to lubricate stabilizers on a keyboard, he's the guy that pops up. And I followed all of his tutorials, built this thing out. It's amazing. Here's the you've been seeing the B-roll of it. It's fantastic. I love this thing dearly. It's another thing where I'm like, how did I live so long without it? It honestly is amazing to me. I know it's like first world problems to be like, oh, my keyboard is kind of clunky, but this thing seriously is fantastic. I love it. As for mouse, it's pretty simple. I'm running the G903, nothing too fancy about it. I've been using it for a while. The only reason I selected it, to be honest, is because it has these buttons on the side that you can route to macros, which is actually really crucial for me editing videos quickly, because I have in Premiere Pro routed to these buttons. I have cut, then I have ripple delete, and then play on the other one on the other side, which allows me to quickly cut, ripple delete, so everything cinches together, and then work through a big video like that. Seriously, without a mouse like this or some other way of hitting those macros quickly, it would take me probably twice as long to make critiques. So seriously, something as simple as this, I know it might be fancy or it might have all these other bells and whistles. For me, it really just comes down to the buttons on the side. One of the other things I should mention is something that was a recent addition, but has actually proved very, very cool to me. I got this little switcher off of Amazon, and I can just show it to you here. It's just a little 3-button switch, a 3-key switch. And basically it just plugs into your computer, and you can route whatever you want to these keys so they can pull little macros. So if, speaking of editing in Premiere Pro, you could have like Control K, Control Shift Delete, and you could have Control S to save routed to these. So you can do all of that separately. It's a really nifty little device, but what I got it for was something a little bit different. You see, I'm running 2 PCs. Again, not because I wanted to just build 2 PCs and be a show off, because I used this PC previously. Let's do a camera swap. This will make it easier to explain. So I'm running 2 PCs. Like I said, I've been using this one for like a year and a half. I think I got it December of 2019, I want to say. Maybe December of 2020. That sounds more accurate. I think it was December of 2020 is when I got this thing, because it has a 38 in it. So December of 2020, I got this thing. Prior to that, I was using this PC. And this PC here is running with an i7 7700K, like 32 gigs of RAM. It's just been a solid powerhouse for a while. But when I finally decided to upgrade, because the 1070 that's in here wasn't really keeping up with new games that I had to critique and review, I was like, I don't want to just get rid of the PC. I mean, I could give it to Nikki, my wife, to play games off of, but she's going to use it like once every 3 months and it's just going to collect dust. Is there a way I can use it in the studio and in the whole setup that will actually allow it to get used so it doesn't go to waste? And I realized I could do a 2 PC streaming setup. One of the things with a 2 PC setup though is that often you need 2 keyboards and 2 mice and 2 sets of peripherals, and it just gets super tedious. Now, as I described earlier, the GoXLR knocks out all of the audio trouble. So you can have the audio all collected through the GoXLR, and then you can route it with line out and line in cables so that everything works out really, really nicely and smoothly. But it still doesn't fix the problem of having 2 mice, 2 keyboards, which is just cumbersome. And one thing they don't tell you is when you have 2 mice that are wireless, you're going to get interference. If those mice are sitting next to each other and you're playing like a competitive shooter, every once in a while, there's going to be a little bit of interference where the mouse kind of skips a little bit on screen because the signal got jumbled and something happened and then it jumps, and it will drive you absolutely insane. That's what started happening to me. I was playing games like Apex and I noticed that my mouse was doing weird things. And I was like, my computer shouldn't be laggy. What's going on? And I realized it's because the 2 mice were interfering with each other. So what I did is I researched options. This switch allows me to fix all of that using a program called Synergy. Synology is my ass. We'll get to that later. Synergy is just a really simple application. It's like $30 for a lifetime membership. And all it does is it allows you to route through macros to certain keys. It will allow you to route commands that swap your peripherals between 2 or more computers that are on the same network. So because I have both of these PCs onto a network switch that goes straight into the router, I had no issue with this. I was like, okay, this could work. So what it does effectively is I press this top button, my mouse and keyboard automatically swap to the streaming PC. Boom. And then when I want to swap back to my main PC, my gaming PC, that key, done, easy. The mice and keyboard just swap between the 2 computers. It's amazing. It works perfectly. The only potential hiccup is that one PC has to be the master, sort of, and then the secondary computer or computers are the, of course, children underneath that parental established computer. So if you turn off the parent computer, you can't actually use your mouse and keyboard on any of the children devices. So you're just kind of screwed if you accidentally turn off your main PC before turning off your secondary PC. You're going to have to hard power it off. But that's a stupid little problem. You're going to figure it out really quickly and never have a problem with it again. Other than that, I've never had any issues with it. It works super well, and it allowed me to get rid of a second keyboard and a second mouse that I had been running for a few months prior to that. So little solution. One of the other coolest things that I have in here. Love it. Now, something that's not cool at all, actually quite hot, are the lights. You've probably noticed that I'm starting to work up a bit of a sweat, and hopefully you've appreciated the lighting that we have in here because we've worked pretty hard getting it working and set up the way that it is. Basically, all these are 2 Amaran aperture lights. One is a 100X, the other is a 100D. All that means is that they're 100-watt lights. One of them is a daylight. The other one, the X, can do any temperature that you want within reason, so you can change it dynamically. It really doesn't matter that much. This one I have with the X back here, so my main face cam while filming videos or streaming, I can customize that light temperature much more closely. And then this one is just a regular daylight. And they're both set up with Light Dome Mini 2s. And all that is it's a soft box with a honeycomb placed on top. What the honeycomb does is it just focuses the light so it comes down in a specific shaft and doesn't spill out to the rest of the room. Because if you didn't have the honeycomb on, all of this back here would be lit up, everything down here would be lit up, it would be much less focused. So having something like this really helps you target it where you want the light while remaining soft and luscious the way you want a light to be. I'm also running just a simple Elgato key light in the back of the room. This used to be my main light on my face, but it's found a new life lighting up my Harry Potter Hogwarts Lego set that my buddy Caleb got me for Christmas like a year and a half ago. So it finally has its own dedicated light. And then I have the display cases, which of course house a few different collectible statues that I have from some of my favorite games: Horizon Forbidden West, The Last of Us Part 2, Cyberpunk, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which isn't one of my favorite games, but you know, I figure whenever there's something that inflicts a lot of trauma to you, you should probably have something to remember it by. And my Google YouTube silver play button, and then my college diploma I've got up there, just so they're always here. And two things I'm very, very proud of that I worked very, very hard at are here in the studio and in all the videos, which I just kind of like. Last little tidbits to wrap up the setup. PCs, like I said earlier in passing, this is my main gaming PC, the big black box in the corner. It is just a powerhouse. It's running a 5950X, a 3080, 128 gigs of RAM. Everything's running off of M.2 SSDs. It is overkill in every sense of the word. Nobody needs a CPU that fast or overpowered for gaming or even content creation within reason. The reason I got a good deal on it, and I also was trying to spend through some checks that I had gotten when I was working in commercial real estate. I had to basically put the money somewhere and not just sit on the cash, so I kind of went crazy with it. But that PC's been great, no issues. It's tremendous. That's it. The only problem is the PC case is too big. The reason I got the huge PC case, which again, you can see in that link to the kit in the description box below, I got the case because I needed external storage for all of the gameplay footage that we record for critiques and videos. And in fact, I've been bulking up and saving a lot of the footage that I collect while playing games. For years and years I've been doing this, but every time I upgrade my PC, I need more and more storage. It started with just a 4 terabyte hard drive. I only had one, and if it ever had any issues, I was going to lose all of the data and it was going to be terrible. And it never happened. It never broke on me. But then I upgraded to this next PC and I started storing all of the footage on this PC. This PC did have a problem. It crapped out and I lost like over a dozen terabytes. I think it was 16 terabytes or 20 terabytes of hard drives in this white PC. Basically a fan controller shorted out, started smoking, almost started a fire, and all of those hard drives were bricked. I think I have a picture on my Instagram account of it. Heartbreaking, but the data was just gone. Luckily, I had recently backed everything up to Google Drive, so all was not lost. But I decided that I was going to just do the same thing in this computer. So I started doing that, and I realized that was probably a bad idea and I should do something a little more professional. So this year in I think it was December or January, I finally decided to bite the bullet and get myself a NAS. Not anything crazy, just a Synology NAS with 4 bays in it, and I was going to get this whole thing set up where I could have redundancy and protection for data loss, and then I could also have a ton of capacity to store pretty much whatever I wanted on the drives. So that's what I did. So in each of the 4 bays, I have a 16 terabyte Seagate Barracuda drive, I believe it is. And that is all set up in a RAID 5. Basically, if I lose one of the bays or one of the drives, I won't lose any data. I can lose one. If I lose more than that, I'm in trouble, but I can lose one and be totally fine. And all the while, it still gives me over 40 terabytes of capacity, which is insane. So I really don't have to worry about any like ceiling on storage anytime soon. And with these Synology NASs, you can also extend them. So you can get an additional piece that gives you like 8 more bays on some of these models, which is really, really nice. So I've got that set up. We currently have about 15 to 16 terabytes of gameplay footage that's stored on this server of everything from the original Red Faction to Mario Sunshine to Cyberpunk 2077 to Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Like pretty much every second of every game I play, I record and it gets stored on this server. So if I ever make a video and make in passing, like this reminds me of that one mission in The Simpsons Hit and Run, I have footage of it. Boom, right there. You know, it's very, very nice. Again, not everybody needs this, but I remember a few years ago, there was an issue. There was a YouTuber named Clean Prince Gaming, and he was making a video where he was talking about, I believe, The Division. And, you know, I had talked to Tyler a few times. I'm pretty sure his name is Tyler. I talked to Tyler a few times, and he seemed like a well-meaning guy, but he had made this video and he didn't have footage for The Division himself. So he downloaded gameplay off of other people's YouTube channels and used it in the video while he talked about it. He had played The Division, but he just didn't record it and have footage of it to discuss in the video. So he got into a bunch of crap, and there were a lot of issues with it. And, you know, it's not a legal matter. Like, that is totally fair use, and he was totally okay to do it because it was transformative. It retained the value of the original work, blah, blah, blah. Every metric for fair use was met, but it's still just people didn't like it. And I saw that and I was like, okay, yeah, I don't want to run into that issue. I especially if I don't have to. So I started recording everything, saving all of it. So the hope is now the only time we have to use external footage is when it's for something brand spanking new and we can just get the footage directly from the publisher, or if it's in a very, very niche case where I can't get my hands on the game, such as like I needed footage for the Elder Scrolls Arena recently for a video I did, the Just Cause video when we were talking about map size. And that was something like I can't get the Elder Scrolls Arena now. Like you just can't play it. You can't get it. So I went online and I downloaded footage from that. But that's a very niche specific case. Our goal is to have everything we need locally on the server. Not to mention this server gets backed up to Dropbox all day, every day. It's been backing up nonstop for like a month and a half, and it has about 3 months to go until it's done backing up to Dropbox. But once that's done, we will be fully protected, and all of my editors that I work with, the editing team in the UK, everybody will have access to the footage on day one whenever they need it, which is kind of the goal. That's the ideal. So we're getting there. We're getting there. Other little random stuff. I've got like a Stream Deck XL there. I also have a little one here. Same thing. This was my original that I upgraded to that one 2 or 4 or with. And I just kept this one around. I didn't want to get rid of it. And now I use it whenever I'm facing the camera this way and we're on stream. I can still control those computers with this Stream Deck without having to turn around, which is kind of nice. Got the PS5. I have an Oculus Quest 2. I played a couple of VR games earlier in the year, such as the Batman whatever VR. I think they just called it Batman VR, Batman Arkham VR, whatever it was. I played that game through Steam on that headset. We made that little mini critique on that game. That was all done with that headset. It's super cool. That thing's amazing. I still can't believe it runs natively off of that headset, and the wireless stuff works so well. It's amazing. Get yourself a Quest 2. They're fantastic. I know you like, Meta, Facebook sucks. I know, but like, it's so cool. I'm just looking around to see if there's anything I didn't mention that deserves a call out that I just totally blew past. I don't know, things are running through a UPS system, so if the power drops out in the house, I live in an area of Colorado where power can be dirty sometimes and can cut out randomly. So I have a UPS system rigged up, so if I lose power while working on a video or something, that thing will kick in, the battery will run the whole setup. It can run both computers for like 6 or 7 minutes, I believe. So if that happens, the lights die and everything's shutting down, that thing starts beeping ferociously, I still have time to save, close all the programs, turn off the computers so I don't lose any data, which is just a nice little thing to have. In terms of routing and networking, everything's set up pretty much as you would expect. I run an Eero. I had tons of issues with gaming routers that I had bought for like years and years and years, tons of issues with those routers. And then finally I was on stream one day explaining it. Philly, or Filipino Finesse, over on Twitch, we were playing and talking, and just a really cool viewer, and he recommended I get an Eero, and I was like, okay, I'll take your word for it, I'll give it a shot. And it has been fantastic. Zero issues from day one. It's just worked phenomenally well. I literally don't have a bad thing to say about it. I was skeptical because I was like, I don't know, it's not a gaming router, so it probably isn't great for gaming, but it's been tremendous. I think that just about does it, though. That just about does it. I mean, I've got like an HDMI switcher that lets me swap the inputs to the capture card that's in the streaming PC, so I can go from the PS5 to the main gaming PC to a Nintendo Switch input, so I can hot swap between those without rearranging cables, which is kind of cool. Stuff like that, but I think that's pretty par for the course. What else is there? Oh, duh, the cameras. God, the cameras. I don't know how I didn't mention this real quickly because this video is getting very, very long. The cameras I'm running, A7S Mark IIs. These are older Sony cameras. They're full frames. New, these things would probably cost you like $3,500, I think, just for the body, maybe $3,200 for the body. I've never bought them full price, and I don't recommend you do so either, especially because right now all of the prices on these cameras are hyperinflated. The main one I've been using for like 4 years, that one I got open box as a display model from a Best Buy that I live by, and or lived by at the time, and it had been on the sales floor used by Joe Schmo and his whole family. Everybody touched this camera. It's very beaten up, but for video, it functioned well enough. And it served my purposes very, very well. And I got that thing heavily discounted because it was so beaten up. This one, which is newer, is also a used camera. It's also a little dinged up here and there on the body, but it was primarily used for photography, not for video, even though it's primarily targeted at videographers, the particular model that we're talking about, at least. So I got this one, again, heavy discount because it was used. I think it was off Amazon, and it's been great. As for lenses, these I'll have linked in that kit buyout or kit description, whatever thing. I'm running f1.4 lenses. These particular lenses are Rokinons. Actually, I have the boxes here. Rokinons. I was going to take these up to the garage before I started filming, then I forgot. These things are just really solid 35mm f1.4 lenses, really soft, buttery depth of field, as you can see. They're really sharp for video as well, which is nice, especially for a pretty cheap lens. Prior to this, I was running with like a Sony f1.2 Sigma art lens. That thing's like $1,300. It's super buttery and soft. It has nice autofocus capabilities, but for this setup, I don't need variable autofocus. I don't need something that's constantly rolling and doing that. I just need something that sets up, looks good, and that we can chill with, and this thing is exactly that. So I have two of these lenses, one on this camera, one on that camera. Again, no autofocus, they just sit there. But for something like this, I don't think you reasonably need autofocus. I'm not convinced, unless you're doing something really specific in your setup. I don't think you need autofocus if you're doing something where you're sitting at a desk in one spot talking to a camera. Like, you don't need it. You don't need it. Plus, I kind of like that it goes out of focus when I back up, and then I can come into focus. Welcome, we've arrived. I think that's so cool. And then all of this gets routed through cables up and around to the streaming PC. Both cameras plug in there, and they go into a Camlink Pro, which is an Elgato product. It's basically just a capture card that doesn't have an out or output, because it's just taking the signal from the cameras, collecting those, and then providing them as video inputs on the computer. It works really well, really fluidly. Not much else to say. They just work well. And of course, because we have to be set up for long periods of time, they also have an AC adapter battery, or dummy battery as some people call it, in each of them, which basically just means that you put a fake battery into the compartment and it plugs into an outlet in a power strip, and it can run for hours and hours, and the battery will never die because it's an outlet. But okay, I really do think that is the end of it. I think that is everything that I could possibly talk about. The desk was IKEA. It's a typical desk that you've seen where it's like a kitchen island that you basically put on cabinets, which is kind of cool. Everything else really standard. The foam I've had for years. It's been in videos for years, and it's just followed me as I move from place to place. This is where we're at. It's taken years to get here. It's been years of upgrading and adding pieces to the puzzle, and we finally are in this setup that I am very fortunate to have, where I'm really happy with how things are set up. And I'm going to keep tinkering it with it because I'm one of those people, I can just never be satisfied. But I really enjoy messing with all of this stuff, and it's only doable because of you guys watching the videos. Those of you who notice these weird changes that I make to the setup, I do read your comments, and I do see those of you who notice the little tweaks that I make. So thank you for that. But the moral of the story and the moral of this video is that you don't need a $25,000 roughly studio to be successful on YouTube. All of these things have been slowly acquired. You've noticed me say time and time again in this video, I used this thing for years and years, and then I upgraded to this thing, but I kept it around and I didn't get rid of it. I've found a new way to implement it into the system. This computer, sorry, I get all turned around. This computer, I used that for years, like for 3 years before I upgraded to that. And then that thing I'm going to be using for years and years before I upgrade it. And then I'm sure it's going to shift over and everything's going to get passed down the line. Like, all of this is just adding, and it's iterative, and things have slowly been piecing together for years and years and years. So don't think that you have to show up on day one if you want to be a YouTuber and have this type of setup. You don't. In fact, I've said this on the Twitch stream before. I don't think having a high-end setup when you are a small channel actually helps you. I think good production quality, I think having an ear for sound and trying to make sure that things are edited well, that adds a lot. But when you show up and say you've got 500 subs on YouTube, or you've got 50 followers on Twitch, and people drop into your stream or watch a YouTube video of yours, and you've got like a $25,000 setup, people are going to look at you and be like, okay, well, they've got the production quality there. Why aren't people watching? Why don't they have a big channel? It must be because something's wrong. And it's sort of like when a really quality product gets its price cut and it gets put on sale too much. People see the lower price and go, oh, something's wrong. I don't actually want it. It must be a knockoff. There's got to be something I don't know about that explains why that is the way it is. It looks too good to be true, right? Same basic principles apply to this. Sometimes having a simplistic setup, sometimes having something that's a little more bare bones can actually help you, because it makes everything much more relatable and it makes more sense to people. When you have a smaller channel, lower production values, totally understandable, totally fine. The audience will be very supportive anyways. When you get to a big channel, close to 250,000 subs, people tend to have higher expectations, and they don't tend to make a lot of exceptions. If your stuff starts to lag behind the competition, they will let you know, and people will make it very clear that your production value is falling below the standard. So you got to stay in front of these things, and that's definitely what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be the head of the pack, but don't worry about that now. If you're just starting, focus on the essentials. The content is king, and it will carry you to the point where you can go crazy with your setup, but you got to get that base content figured out first. But okay, that actually does it. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end of this, you are absolutely insane. I don't deserve you. You are tremendous. I really do appreciate you. You have no idea. Thank you to BenQ, of course, for sending over this monitor. Very, very generous of them. It's fantastic. And again, I can't recommend it enough. They didn't pay me to say it. They just sent it over, said, let me know what you think of this. And, you know, maybe tell your fans what you think of it. If you love it, great. If you hate it, that's a bummer. And they're just lucky I happen to really love it. So, you know, it's a happy little coincidence. It's a a fun little thing that worked out for everybody. Everybody's happy. All of this, I'm very thankful. None of this would exist without you guys watching. So thank you. As for future content, we're working on it right now. We've got some critiques in the works. I'm working on a Dying Light 2 critique. Dying Light. What a game that would be. And that critique will be up hopefully in the next week or two. And after that, we're working on videos for Elden Ring. We're working on videos for Kingdom Come Deliverance. You name it, we're on the grind and working to make it a reality. So thank you for watching. Thanks you for supporting. It's late. I'm stumbling over my words, so I'm going to call it here. Much love to all of you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.